Are you ready to give the sermon tonight, or would you like me to?
I would like you to.
Tell you what, I'll give it tonight and you do it tomorrow, and that's fine. So what you've just witnessed is a custom that I have here at PJTC of freaking out the bat mitzvah right before she's about to do prayers and stuff. So if you do the same joke over and over again, it is technically a ritual. So with that, I wanted to start with something traditional because in the words of Torah that I want to share tonight, I'm going to do a couple of things that I don't normally do. First, I want to break a rule of sermon giving that was given to me by a mentor and dear friend, Rabbi Dan Shevitz, who, when I was his intern and he was guiding me on how to prepare sermons, he said, "Hey, I have a little mnemonic for you. I want you to remember to avoid the French salad." Like, what on earth could that possibly mean, avoid the French salad? He says, when you're giving a sermon, leave out "let us" and "may we." Let us and may we. French salad. Okay. Something about Zoom. You never know when the jokes are landing. But and he said there's a couple of good reasons for this. One, you shouldn't tell people what to do. Right? Don't go around telling people what to do. Just teach Torah. I think that's probably a safer way to go. And if you're going to tell people what to do, let us and may we. Don't use the cohortative. Right? That's if you're going to tell people what to do, tell them what to do. Don't use the "hey, wouldn't it be great, gang, if we did this." If you are going to break that rule, break it hard. Because if you're breaking that rule, it's because it is important. And normally I don't like telling people what to do. I'm sure there are people who would argue with me, especially my children. And I just like to teach Torah. The other rule I'm breaking is I like to keep it light on Friday nights, especially when there's a bat mitzvah. But the world, my friends, is unusually heavy. And most of the time, I try to follow Rabbi Shevitz's advice, except when lives are at stake in my community. Then I try to do both. I'm going to teach a little Torah, and I'm going to tell you what to do. And I say this with all possible humility and urgency. I implore you, please, if you have the opportunity to do so, when you have the opportunity to do so, please obtain your full course of vaccination against COVID-19 as soon as it becomes available to you. I wouldn't be saying this unless I knew that there were people who are hesitating for lots of good reasons, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I need you to hear from me, this is a mitzvah to get your vaccinations, not only in the sense of a good deed, a kindness you can do to help us safely reunite our community and end others' suffering, but also a mitzvah in the sense that our tradition regards it as a holy obligation incumbent upon every Jew whose doctor says it is safe for them to do so. It is a good deed, and it is a commandment. In the coming week, as early as Monday, I'm going to be sending out an email to the entire congregation that contains a couple of attachments. It's 2 chuvot. These are legal responsa papers that come from the CJLS, the Committee on Jewish Law and Standards, the body of rabbis for the conservative movement who look at what is new in the world and say, what is the Jewish way to regard that? And they give a variety of opinions on things, some of them conflicting, because they know that communities are different. But these are different in their unity. For brevity and convenience, I will sum up for you the most relevant rulings to our situation here. And these are from the Chuvot of Micah Peltz and also from Rabbi David Golinkin. Jewish law requires Jews to vaccinate themselves and their children against disease, provided the vaccines prove efficacious and safe compared to the risk of the disease. The available COVID vaccines meet that standard under Jewish law, demonstrating that they are orders of magnitude more safe than life without them. The only exception to this commandment is when a person's doctor determines that that specific person should not be vaccinated due to a pre-existing condition. These are the rulings of our rabbis, and not just our rabbis. I'm sending you these tshuvot for a couple of reasons. One, because, as I said before, I love teaching Torah. And these legal papers are chock full of diverse sources that show you just how deeply and broadly this present moment is aided by the voices of our timeless Jewish tradition. You will see that rabbis from across our Jewish family, from the most progressive to the least, and all stripes in between, have spoken with one voice on the obligation to protect your health and the health of your community. These unified voices echo throughout the sweep of Jewish history, from the ancient plagues of Mishnaic times to the smallpox epidemics of a couple of hundred years ago, up to our present day. The other reason I want to share these with you is that these two documents demonstrate a rare miracle in Jewish dialogue: the unity of opinion on this matter of grave import. It is not unprecedented for this legal body to approve a paper unanimously without abstention. However, this unanimity is exceedingly rare. We are Jews. But this unanimity speaks to the peril of our times, the clarity of our tradition on this point, and the solidarity with which we must act. This never happens, almost, that everybody says this is the right way to do it. And here are two papers back to back that say so. If you're curious about these opinion papers and you want to read them and study with them in dialogue with me more in depth, we are going to be having one of our social halls on Tuesday, February 2nd. I'll share these papers with you. We can discuss them in the social hall. I'll answer whatever questions you have about their contents or their procedures, because this is important. Now, I know I'm getting worked up, and I know many of our families have already taken advantage of the available vaccine, or else have no hesitation about getting the shots as soon as possible. If this is the case for you, please know that you've not just done the right thing, you have done a mitzvah, fulfilling a sacred responsibility given to us to distinguish our lives, to make our lives holy, and to repair what is broken in the world. I know many of our senior members who are desperately trying to get the vaccine. They say, John, I hear you. I'm way ahead of you. I am trying as much as I can, but all the dates are booked up and I don't know when to have to call before dawn to get an appointment. I would if I could. Help. So for those of you who are trying and are having a hard time, I would say lean on us, lean on each other. For those of you who found your way through the system and you know some tips and tricks you can share, please share them. And we will figure out a way to get through this together as quickly as possible. Nevertheless, the urgency with which I share this message comes from talking to many of you and hearing about many of you who have expressed hesitation for a variety of salient reasons. The unprecedented haste of the vaccine's development. Questions about the safety of vaccines in general persist. And even the ethics of taking advantage of a scarce resource when so many in our city and on our planet don't have access to it. Is it okay? I don't dismiss your concerns. Neither do these tshuvot. But all things considered, the science is clear. The guidance of our sages is unequivocal. The life-saving benefit of vaccine proliferation, not only for you, but for your community, outweighs what measured risk may come with such measures. Regarding the ethics of distribution, our rabbis conclude that you do the most good for others in this moment by safeguarding your own life as soon as possible. It's been a while since some of us have been in an airplane, but you probably remember the spiel. You have to be able to breathe. You have to be able to put your own mask on first if you're going to help someone else. Now, when studying these tshuvot and all their varied sources throughout our history, the one that struck me the hardest was the commentary of a teacher named Avram ben Shlomo of Hamburg, also known as Abraham Nanzig. He was a Torah scholar who corresponded with some students who were in London, and he sent a letter of guidance based on their questions. Rabbi, is it okay for me to get a treatment for smallpox? I should have mentioned this was in 1785. The trick is, in 1785, smallpox was rampant in Europe. And by rampant, I mean it was killing 400,000 people a year, roughly the number of people who've died in America alone in the last 10 months. And also salient is the fact that a stable vaccine wasn't invented until 11 years later. But they had a treatment. They had a very rough hack, if you will, of a treatment. The treatment for the inoculation, and this is frontier medicine, folks. The inoculation for smallpox was they would take a needle and thread, and they would drag the thread through some of the substance that came from smallpox blisters, and then they would insert the needle under the skin and draw the thread through, and so people would be exposed to a little bit of smallpox. And this was not without side effects, but what happened was way less severe than an unprotected case of smallpox. This was the common inoculation for smallpox among revolutionary troops in America at this time. The Continental Army did the same thing. There's a story of Martha Washington, because she wanted to spend a season with her husband on the fronts, went through this same treatment, and it was not pleasant, but it was necessary. And when Abraham Nanzig's students wrote to him, they knew that he'd already lost 2 sons to smallpox. And so he wrote them back. He said, this disease is so widespread, so contagious, that everyone should be considered at risk, and therefore the benefit of the vaccine, even one that was new and uncertain and not with a great track record, outweighs the risk. In other words, for him, the greater societal benefit of taking the vaccine, along with the serious consequences of contracting the disease, outweighs the risk that it might pose to a few individuals. He wrote his students because he did not want a single new person to suffer the way he did. As a loving member of our diverse PJTC family, I hope that it will be a rare occasion indeed where you hear from me that there is only one right way to do a thing as a Jew. Nothing is more precious to me than the diversity of our heritage and our sacred approach to harboring disagreement with dignity. I sincerely hope we never face a situation like this again. But hear me now. You owe your community. You owe it to your family. You owe it to the frontline medical workers who are bending and breaking to keep us safe. You owe it to everyone who has had a Zoom baby naming, a Zoom bat mitzvah, a Zoom wedding, and a Zoom funeral. And you owe it to those who have perished for the lack of the opportunity you have now. This may sound harsh. This may sound hyperbolic. But as your rabbi, I owe it to you to tell you what I believe in my heart of hearts. In a time that strains us all, this is the right thing to do. And if my urgency has upset you, I beg you for your forgiveness. But with the blood of more than 2 million souls crying out from the ground worldwide, I will not be silent. So I conclude with blessings of health, with patience, and with strength. Shabbat Shalom. And thank you again for joining us at PJTC.